it's like and tension, what have you. And very few people wanted to go knock on doors to talk to residents, let alone come and talk to someone like me who was active in the community at that time. So the first, a number of things happened. And the number one biggest thing was relationships. People in that neighborhood had diverted their relationships via regeneration, via the council. They never had this, I wouldn't say mano to mano. You know, you're the pastor, you're the imam, you're the teacher who's been in this area for ages, you're that shopkeeper. What's the relationship between you and me? Forget about a regeneration program calling us to some summit or a conference day. And we soon realized that people didn't know each other. People were going to call each other up and say, you know, the only people who knew each other, people lived in the neighborhood.
Can I ask you a question on that? Do you think that we've professionalized civic engagement?
Yeah, too often.
Well, why do you think that is?
Because it makes people's jobs and careers easy.
So in making it easy then, would you say that one of your primary functions is to empower and inspire people to contest that?
Yeah, disorganize.
So in terms of speaking to power and being able to do that, for people in the inner city who go to food banks, who have to wrestle with a whole series of social issues, how do you enable them to navigate the social structure so that they feel confident enough to assert themselves without getting arrested?
For sure.
Or sectioned?
Yeah. So we're fast forwarding now from 2005 to 2017. So in the last 5 years, I left a career in the NHS where I was on the other side. I was that person that people wanted to. I was the guy who ran public consultations in Ladywood in the city for the NHS, and I realized very soon is exactly what you were saying, which is they professionalize engagement. You got to be able to read a report. You got to be able to follow a 14-page PowerPoint presentation. All of that stuff. Right. And also when decisions are made, you know, the consultations are about, we want to name the health centre. What name would you want it? As opposed to what do you want to see in the building that you really want to make happen? So in 2012, I started again and I learned about disorganising, reorganising, and I became a community organiser with Citizens UK. Still learning, fast forwarding 5 years on. And the answer to your question is that we are all connected to some kind of an institution. Whether it is music, whether it is through education, like the school we go to, whether it's through faith. And these institutions are really important. They've in the main have perhaps lost their mission. Remember, way before Birmingham City Council existed, these civic institutions existed. Trade unions existed. Faith or churches existed. And the amazing work I realized from my time in the neighborhood forum before I joined Citizens UK was that I got fat. Right, I was the one who's going to all of these meetings. I was the one, so some wonderful people would say, look, Saeed's here, he's going to deal with them. And it helped my ego. But what it didn't do, it didn't create that capacity around me. I was making excuses to my wife as to why I was late. You know, that I was going to another meeting, but I would say I was still at work. And so what community organising teaches is that primary school that your children go to, that mosque that you go to, that church you go to, that particular group that you might be involved in. You might not be involved in everything. There are people, member of trade unions, they do that. They get a discount on their car insurance. You must demand that these institutions actually bring people together in public around organising. I'll give you an example. One of my favourite institutions are primary schools. Right? Give me a 10-year-old and I'm 8% sure I'm going to win some campaign. So I'll tell you the story of Pires, and that's how I'm going to share it. Local primary school in Hockley, St. Francis Primary School, poor. Children there come from different ends in that area, not in the same ward. So all different backgrounds, settled and immigrant communities. And Pires tells us a story. His mum works, so she can't pick him up after school all the time. So sometimes he has to walk home on his own. And when he goes through the park, the older boys throw cigarettes at him and chase him. But he has a favourite hiding place in the park. And we are trying to persuade shops and business around his school to act as what we call a safe haven. Meaning if he's walking down the road and he doesn't feel safe, he can pop in there and that person will call his mum and dad, call the school. And so we're sat not far from where we are here, around the corner, actually. Power is, we can walk there in 5 minutes. The police headquarters, meeting the West Midlands Police Crime Commissioner. There's a group of children, myself, and very clearly we're asking the police commissioner, will you support this idea of shops and businesses acting as safe havens in their locality? And the police commissioner starts talking about the police and crime plan for Birmingham. Now, clearly, Pires ain't going to read it. I've read it. I would understand it. And he says, look, I'm the police commissioner for the West Midlands, but there is something going on in Birmingham. And Pires, who's in that room, and this is what I mean by how his school took community organising very seriously, he says, Mr. Jones, I can't come to your police meeting because I got to do my SATs exam and my head teacher won't let me out. Will you say yes? And will you come to an assembly that we're having and say yes in front of everybody? And Mr. Jones really realized very quickly in that room that Pires was the man with the power, not me. I'm a facilitator. I'm there with that process.
Well, as we're coming to the end of the interview, I want to kind of pose an unusual question, because obviously with the passion, the energy, the drive, and the vision, I'm 60 this year, and as I get older, I feel that energy changing. If there's a Saeed in the making, age 20, and they're looking for a vocation, what are 2 or 3 considerations to sustain this trajectory so that you don't burn out? Because you've got a wife, you've got children. As I'm 60 and I've reached this point, what I'm realizing is delegation becomes more important. Resting becomes more important. So for you, if you was building capacity, as you've said, within the next generation, give us 2 or 3 things quickly to enable the sustainability of that capacity.
So when I started community organising 5 years ago, my plan was to make myself redundant. And I met amazing people like yourself in those times around that question. Remember, I started off realizing, man, I put on weight. And so right now, I am an organizer with 50 leaders. These are 50 people, Richard, who was here earlier, and these are leaders. They have following, they are rooted, they have stories. And my main role really as an organizer is to support them, is to work and navigate with them. What that then allows me to go on holiday and chill and actually be more fat because I'm going to restaurants rather than having takeaways. But that specific thing to a 20-year-old, the first thing is you've got to train and learn, right? There are people for decades who have studied and applied the craft of winning change politically in their communities. Read and learn about what they've done. You are not new. Your tools might be new, Instagram might be new, but what happened with Saul Alinsky in the 30s, what Dr. Martin Luther King did, one of the amazing things about the film Selma is we can teach organizing just off that film. So the first thing is you've got to commit to learning. So it's not necessarily go do a degree. I'm not suggesting that. And actually, I know lots of people coming out doing degrees and I thought, my gosh, where's your cold anger? You ain't got none. In fact, you're more difficult if you went into the community doing community work with all that degree that you haven't really thought about. The second is realize your story. Really connect to what's been the pivotal moments in your life. And do not worry about, I spend a lot of time in meetings. Do not memorize the Guardian research or the headline in the article. A lot of people in power I meet, one of the ways of putting them off balance is when you tell a story. When you tell a genuine story and you can say, look, if you want to meet this person, give me half an hour of your time, I'll take you to them. So be rooted. Do not assume that you have to know everything that's going out there and you've got to sign yourself up to a mailing list. The third and most important thing is do not be an armchair commander. Go out there and try and make change happen. And I do know loads of people who can speak so eloquently about activism and change. And I did an unofficial survey of some of the wonderful people in the city that I follow on Twitter. So all I did was look through their tweets for the past 3 months just to see whether they were tweeting about, today we went and did this and we changed that. From only 4 folks out of 20, and I spent all my time doing it, actually had regular tweets about, we went there, we did this, we didn't win this, we changed that. Almost everybody else were retweeting, endorsing, commenting on something, but there was nothing about a photograph of their boot on the ground having done that. And what happens is our youth and our young people see those folks because they're in those spots like social media, and they think, hey, this is following, as opposed to someone who went out in the street and I tried doing this.
Well, outside, as you can hear, the time's got away from us.
Thank you.
What I want to say to people listening, and I think Saeed's encapsulated something fundamental. You know, as we're sitting here reflecting, he has a good life. He's enjoyed. He's experienced poverty. He's experienced stress and trauma, but through that adversity, he's found a challenge and a vision and a purpose that he's actually actualizing it. So remember, on the Roadman's Guide, this is about the community, for the community, by the community. But I want us to remember the 6 R's. And the 6 R's is you should always read, write, research, recharge, rest. And finally, which is the number 1 R for me, remember. So finally, until next time, stay safe, walk good, and bring light into the darkness. So this is Doc Martin on the Roadman's Guide. I'll see you next time. Peace.